Welcome to Arlington Public News. I'm Brenda Mahoney.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Thanks for joining us. In this edition of APN, town elections and town meeting fill the April calendar. And the new Arlington High School design starts to take shape.
Plus, a community conversation on the developing teen brain and the effects of marijuana. That and more up next. Stay with us. There are new faces on both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee after last week's town elections.
And town meeting is right around the corner. Tyler Robichaux has all the updates in this week's snapshot. What's the story, Tyler?
Thanks, Paul. Turnout for annual town election almost doubled over last year. Close to 16% of voters turned out to cast a ballot. The most highly contested race on the ticket was for the Board of Selectmen. Selectman Stephen Burns stepped down in December, opening up one seat, and the seat held by incumbent Joe Curo was up for a vote. John Hurd, a local lawyer who grew up in East Arlington, longtime resident and town meeting member Michael Ruderman, and Curo were on the ballot to fill the two slots. Hurd garnered 1,300 more votes than Ruderman to win the open seat. Incumbent Joe Curo returns to serve his 7th term on the board. Voters also elected a new face to the school committee. After serving for 9 years, Committeewoman Cindy Stark steps aside. First-time candidate Jane P. Morgan, a former teacher with 4 children in the Arlington school system, received 52% of the votes cast. Current school committee chair Jeff Thielman will return to the committee for his 6th term. There was only one question on the ballot this year. Voters were asked to decide if the town treasurer and collector of taxes should change from an elected to an appointed position. 2/3 of voters agreed to the change. The question was put before a town meeting last year, and they sent it to the voters for approval. The change will take place in 2 years when the term of the current elected treasurer, Dean Carmen, ends. In addition to the selectmen and school committee races, voters returned Kevin Feely to the Board of Assessors and elected town meeting members from each precinct. With this year's town elections in the books, attention is turning to the 2018 town meeting. The first session takes place on Monday, April 23rd, beginning at 8 p.m. 2 of the articles being considered deal with preservation in the town. Town meeting will consider increases in the fees for tree removal, putting them more in line with the actual cost of the removal. The Board of Selectmen has heard from the community that the current fees are not sufficient to deter from some builders from taking down healthy trees to expedite construction. Preserving Arlington's older housing stock also comes up this year. Article 17 looks to add any building more than 50 years old to the definition of significant building. The bylaw is intended to encourage the preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration of historically or architecturally significant buildings rather than demolish them. ACMi will cover all the town meeting sessions live. You can also watch them at acmi.tv or check your local cable listings for additional times. Back to you, Brenda.
Thanks, Tyler. Architects for Arlington High School are making it clear, telling residents at the latest community forum there is no way to meet educational needs just by renovating, that they must add on or build all new. 8 initial design options were presented at the forum with the goal of narrowing them down with community input. Now, the building committee has since chosen 4 concepts to further explore: 2 renovation addition options and 2 all-new construction scenarios. Here's a look at the benefits driving the options. Getting around Arlington High School requires a lot of walking. 5,000 linear feet of corridor form various pathways from the original 1914 Fusco House building to the 1935 iconic Column House and all of the other additions. Clear to the architect hired by the town for a feasibility study, a simple renovation will not do.
When we look at renovation only for this project, we do not fit the entire educational program in the existing building.
During a forum in early April, project manager Lori Cowles of HMFH Architects presented 8 different options for the public to consider, with the goal of narrowing them down to 3 for further study. All of them take into account not only better functionality, but what school officials say 21st century students need, a large common space for doing their work.
The sort of vision that drove in every single section was this idea of a central learning commons. So a learning commons is like a library, but it's more than a library because it's a library that's not like the library I grew up in where they shushed you all the time. If you go into the Arlington High School library, it is a busy, active place full of classes and students working collaboratively. It's really easy to supervise students under that sort of situation without feeling like they're being supervised. You don't have to ask them where they're going, they're always going here.
Architects considered the programming desires of educators and what the Massachusetts School Board Authority will help pay for in their various options. Some plans keep one or two of the oldest buildings while adding new ones, others looking at all new construction. Cobbles stating that it's up to the town to decide, but that not only can they make good use of the more historic buildings, but there is something to be gained by keeping them. The top of Column House with its clock tower can be opened up and repurposed, and the original Fusco building with its large classrooms and old gym, fondly called the Pit, are still useful.
We think it has a lot of potential to be a great classroom building. Column, really what we're talking about is that whole upper part, which we're exploring opening up and really giving a new life to it.
The more innovative idea that people seem to like was building on the front lawn. Cowles wouldn't recommend option number 8 that would put the entire high school on the arguably underused space, but 1 or 2 buildings, she said, would fit there nicely.
Now, it's a really large front green. It's very special in that it's the only one of its size throughout Arlington for the length of Mass Ave. But I would argue it's pretty underutilized. The concept here is to frame a front entrance.
High school principal Matthew Janger was hesitant to say his favorite plan when asked, but did reiterate his original point, that the school should be easier to navigate and have a central location for collaboration.
The ones that are more compact to me, I think make it easier to get from any place to any place else. Some of the ones I think where you sort of see sprawls in all kinds of directions and you can't figure out the logic behind the school, I think those, my impression and my sense is that those are going to be harder for sort of people to collaborate and coordinate and supervise.
The top 3 projects will be fleshed out some more and further explained at a final forum on June 4th. Residents will then help narrow the choice down to 1 so it can be submitted along with an education program plan to the Massachusetts School Board Authority. The MSBA would then need to approve it likely in August before heading for a schematic design. Brenda Mahoney, Arlington Public News. Well, Paul, no matter the scenarios, it's roughly around a $300 million project, give or take, and it still needs to be passed by debt exclusion in order to go forward and then be reimbursed by the MSBA. They're thinking about 35 to 40%. So passed by debt exclusion, hopefully in 2019. That's what those behind it are hoping for, and then construction being completed by 2024.
Well, costs keep creeping up, as is often the case with projects like this.
That's right, and lots of factors are also involved in the projects. So the project manager, Lori Cowles, will help us understand the MSBA reimbursement calculations and the factors that affect the reimbursement to any particular project.
That should be really helpful.
Well, improvements are coming to Reservoir Beach following the development of a master plan.
And sit back, relax, and let the talking chair read you a poem right here at Robbins Library. That and more when we come back.
Hart, what's going on?
I'm leaving.
Why? What did I do?
Not enough. The pressure is too much. I quit.
I get it. I can do better. Just please don't leave.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
As Beacon Hill refines the regulations around the legalization of marijuana, parents are looking for guidance and discussing the issue with their teens. A recent community forum helped parents understand the developing teen brain and the effect marijuana, as well as alcohol and other drugs, can have on it. APN reporter Sebastian Gonzalez-Johnson brings us these highlights from the meeting.
$1 million question: when is the brain adult? Well, as I said, there are a lot of people asking this question, both nationally, internationally, in my lab. And so the answer is that we think about reaching neurobiological adulthood, as Karen alluded to, really does not conclude until the early 20s. What does this really have to do with marijuana use? And so I don't have to tell you, it's not surprising, and this is pretty much everywhere, is that there's been a dramatic increase in How many kids are using marijuana today, even over the last, decade? And so the fact that it's increasing kind of reflects a couple things. One is that, there's really a mixed message about whether marijuana is harmful or it's organic or, it's always been around, or parents may have used it when they were young and we turned out okay. But the idea here is to focus on today's youth who are living in a very different world.
Marijuana does have consequences. Children aren't always going to listen to those consequences. What's important is having a conversation about what's going on in the moment and having enough trust so that if they're ever concerned or at risk, they feel comfortable enough to call you and get themselves out of that situation.
If someone says at 14, after they had their first joint, that it was the best they ever felt, what is that? What are components of that statement?
So one of the questions that we have also is that, why are kids so looking to alter their consciousness in a way that kind of gets to the point that you're making? So there is a part of the brain, there's the dopamine system, that's the neurotransmitter that kind of gets passed along as we experience something rewarding. And once our body feels it, so marijuana can release dopamine in the brain. And once we've released that, our receptors in the brain pick up on that. And then when the drug is no longer present in the system, the brain says, wait a minute, where'd all that good part go?
When you're talking to a teenager and trying to tell them, don't smoke pot, or you will have, something will happen, whatever that is, just as you have that information that it's a correlation and not a causality, they have that same information. So how do you deal with that? Because they'll just turn right around and say, no, it's not been proven.
But if there's a greater likelihood that someone won't do as well in school, a greater likelihood that they will make worse decisions, a greater likelihood of depression or anxiety, I think that's still relevant, because there are a whole host of things that we don't even know that are occurring in our body or brains that may be related, that maybe we'll figure out or not. I think focusing on the idea that it increases risk in so many dramatic ways and kind of understanding the statistics around that is still useful.
Yeah, I think also some of the things that I talk to the high school students about is, what do you have to lose? So they're not necessarily going to look at the science. Some of them are. Some of them spew the scientific facts to me and my head spins and I'm like, wow. And then others don't care. And I think that more often they don't necessarily care, or they don't want to hear it because I'm their therapist, you're their parent. They don't want me to give them facts. So what do you have to lose? You're driving in the car. Your car smells like marijuana. You get pulled over. Are you going to be driving ever again? Probably not.
Teens or adolescents have always been drawn to doing things that are novel and to, again, get out of the nest. The difference is that today in 2018, there are a lot of risks and there are a lot of harms. And some of those things include substances. So I think it's intriguing, but I think with enough education to really understand what it does, I think that will help people be able to make better decisions.
More beach access and better parking, fewer geese and less sediment. That's what the Recreation Department heard from residents as they developed a plan for the upgrades to the Arlington Reservoir. The Rec Department received $100,000 in community preservation funds to develop a master plan. Designers from the Sampson and Weston Design Studios presented the results and cost estimates to residents last week. APN's Tyler Robichaux brings us this report.
Improvements to Arlington Reservoir are coming soon, but don't expect all the changes to happen at once. Designers have broken the project down into 2 phases. Phase 1 will focus on improving the outdated pump system.
We took a very close look at the pump building. It has reached the end of its useful life, as we say. The equipment is very outdated. It takes a lot to maintain it and keep it running. So it's been deemed in need of improvement at a pretty urgent level.
New pump equipment might not sound like a significant improvement, but the new equipment will have a ripple effect, substantially improving more than just water quality.
Just the improvements that are being made to the pump house with more efficient equipment is going to be a significant improvement in really not only bathing experience, but the operators and maintainers experience, because it can take them like 20 hours to prime a pump just because they're so old. So all of this, and it will be more efficient, and they'll be using less chemicals. So all of that is a plus.
Phase 1 would also begin to improve some of the trails around the reservoir by installing FlexiPave.
Where roots would heave pavement, FlexiPave can undulate a little bit more, and it's just a little, and it also is porous, so it allows water to go through it. In the places where the roots are really becoming obstacles and barriers for people to make their way around, it's the right solution.
Improving the trails and replacing the pump will cost just under $1 million, which has already been budgeted and is expected to be approved by town meeting later this month. Phase 2 is a different story. It includes features such as a new parking lot, a boat ramp, bathhouse renovations, a covered pavilion, and beach renovations. But these come at a cost.
Capital planning has set aside $2 million in the capital plan to assist moving forward with the improvements that have to happen with the res. As you can see right now, $3.2 million is not $2 million.
Moving forward, the Recreation Department will look into applying for grants and other fundraising strategies to raise the $1 million needed to complete Phase 2. If approved in town meeting, Phase 1 construction could start as early as this summer. For Arlington Public News, I'm Tyler Robichaux.
The library has always been a place to sit back and unwind. Robbins Library is taking that concept a step further this April, unveiling the Talking Chair installation in honor of National Poetry Month. Reporter Sebastian Gonzalez-Johnson has the story.
Last week, Robbins Library unveiled the new interactive digital installation in the Fiction Room. In honor of National Poetry Month, the Talking Chair reads aloud poems created by Arlingtonians of all ages. These poems are read from the poets themselves and Arlington's poet laureate, Kathy Desjardins.
The chair was first installed. I sat down and I was being read a poem by Kathy Desjardins, the Arlington's poet laureate, and it was an incredible experience to be read aloud to. And it's a different experience in audiobooks because I was just sitting here and was able to close my eyes and visualize it. It was just a very relaxing experience, and I love hearing the poems that are also read aloud by the poet, especially when it's a child. Hearing her recite her own poem is really, I don't know, it's very powerful and very exciting and a very cool experience for that poet as well to be a part of that project.
With financial support from the Arlington Cultural Council, resident and designer Emily Calvin-Bottis created this talking chair as a way to establish more of an appreciation for poetry as an art form, as well as to provide support for Arlington residents and their work.
So I was at a meeting for the Reimagining Libraries project last fall, and at that meeting we talked about kind of what is the essence of a library, what belongs in a library, and the concept of this kind of intentional serendipity came up, and thinking about how, as an experienced designer, I could make something in a library that would fit into the library, but also bring about kind of that sense of discovery, of finding something new, finding something interesting that you get in the library. And so I thought of a chair being something that's very common and a very kind of different, but giving it a different experience by having it like read you something or talk to you when you sit in it.
There's a digital literary experience to it. It's a different way of engaging with the written word as someone reads it to you. It's also a cool opportunity to see what coding can do and what technology can be. It's not always about a screen or a device. It can be something that's a little bit, that's more, softer, like this comfortable armchair.
Calvin-Bottis also described her personal motivations for developing the project and her reasoning as to why the Arlington community was the ideal place to launch.
I think the project was important to me because I, love the library. I grew up in one. My grandmother was a librarian. It's something I've always done. It's a place that I always enjoy visiting with my kids, and I just thought it would be an interesting experience for other people. And then I think for Arlington has a really good literary community and a lot of poets, and I thought that having poetry be highlighted in the chair would be really a great way to get the community involved and be a part of the project.
Arlington's Director of Libraries, Andrea Nicolay, highlighted poetry as an art form. She also described how the aesthetics of the Fiction Room impact the reception of the display.
I think poetry is one of those art forms that lends itself to shorter form experiences, and I think being able to call attention to some of the creative energy in Arlington around poetry. It's just a wonderful thing to do any chance we get, really. I really like the fact that this room has a little bit of an echo to it. So when you sit in the chair and hear the poem, it's a pretty powerful experience. It permeates the space and it lets you absorb a poem in a way that you don't normally get to. So to have this disembodied voice kind of moving you through a poem, it's a really beautiful experience.
For Arlington Public News, I'm Sebastian Gonzalez-Johnson.
The talking chair will be in the fiction room of Robbins Library throughout the month of April. It will then be moved to the children's room to continue its storytelling role there. Stop by, take a seat, and enjoy a poem or two.
Well, that sounds nice. A fun idea as well, and a great way to introduce people to poetry.
You know, I could use a talking chair at my house telling me I need to clean the house or do the laundry or something like that, but this should be fun.
Or talk for us, perhaps, sometimes.
That would be good. Patriots Day is coming. Here's everything you need to know. We'll be right back.
Patriots Day is coming. Arlington commemorates this historic moment with a full day of events on Sunday, April 15th. Start your day with a little workout at the 54th Annual Arlington Boys and Girls Club Fun Run. The 2.7-mile run takes participants along historical Mass Ave. Everyone is invited to join the fun, from little ones in strollers to masters in the 50-plus group. For more information and to register, visit the Boys and Girls Club website at abgclub.org. At noon, head over to the Jason Russell House at the corner of Mass Ave and Jason Street. Local Minutemen face off with the Redcoats and the Monotony Battle reenactment, marking the most violent encounter during the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And at 2 p.m., the annual Patriots Day Parade steps off from Brattle Street and follows Mass Ave to Adams Street. One of the parade favorites returns this year. The Shriners Circus crew will once again perform its way through town. Remember, parking restrictions and road closures go into effect as early as 8 a.m. For more information, visit the town website at arlingtonma.gov.
It looks like spring has finally arrived, and here are some of the events coming up around town. Celebrate Earth Day by participating in the Great Arlington Cleanup. The event takes place Sunday, April 22nd from 1:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. There will be a cleanup going on at two sites, the Sims Woods on Summer Street and Millbrook at Wellington Park on Grove Street. You are welcome to join the cleanup for as much or as little time as you can. Participants will receive gloves and trash bags for litter removal. Families are welcome, but please leave the dog at home. To RSVP or for more information, email lshepard@town.arlington.ma.us or call 781-316-3012. RSVPs are not required, but will help in planning.
And the winner is the winner of the Arlington International Film Festival poster contest will be announced and the poster unveiled during its 8th annual awards reception on Thursday evening, April 26, at the Arlington Friends of the Drama. The poster entries have been created by students from Mass College of Art Design's illustration department. The winning poster becomes the face of the festival and appears on all festival materials. The event will highlight live music from the N&P Colombian duo, poetry by Arlington Poet Laureate Kathy Desjardins, a dance performance by Siouan Dance Group, and storytelling by Cheryl Hamilton. The reception kicks off the 2018 International Film Festival, and that takes place at the Capitol Theater in early November. Visit aiffest.org for more information.
Join the Housing Corporation of Arlington for their annual walk to support affordable housing. The walk takes place April 29th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meet at the Jason Russell House and then walk down Mass Ave to 20 Winchester Road and 19R Park Avenue in the Heights, both current HCA projects. During the walk, the HCA will hang banners on their Mass Ave properties saying, "This is what affordable housing looks like." For more information, visit housingcorparlington.org.
The 7th annual Arlington Jazz Festival takes place at venues throughout town. It will be taking place Thursday through Sunday, April 26th through the 29th. Award-winning bass guitarist John Patitucci and friends headline the festival. For the complete schedule of events and ticket prices, visit arlingtonjazz.org.
The Ponders spring sports season is underway. Our Studio B Ace Sports crew brings us this update on how the teams look starting out.
Hello Arlington, I'm Kira Power and welcome to another edition of your Spy Ponders Sports Update. Spring sports has officially begun in Arlington. Girls tennis began their season with a 5-0 win against Melrose and Watertown, while the boys took a similar 5-0 win against Malden Catholic. Unfortunately, the boys on the volleyball court couldn't secure a win against Newton or Westford Academy. Coming over to the turf, girls lacrosse took an impressive 19-2 win against Stoneham, while boys lacrosse started with a lead against Melrose, but unfortunately couldn't hold on to it and took the loss.
Foster plays it across to Justin McKinney. McKinney shoots, scores! Justin McKinney! And McKinney with a shot and a goal on the assist from Emmett Foster.
Things are looking up at the plate. Boys baseball and girls softball both took a win against Stoneham. Finally, ACMi's own Scott Zwick and Rob Anthony were happy to sit down for an exclusive interview with Arlington Catholic's new football head coach, Anthony Petrillis.
I graduated in 2001. I was a captain of the football team then. Went off to college for 4 years and came back and joined the team as a freshman defensive coordinator. Next year was promoted to JV defensive coordinator, defensive back coach, and then 2 years after that, in 2008, I took over as varsity defensive coordinator, and I held that position for about 7 years in Arlington Catholic. Won a Super Bowl, a few league championships, and really kind of learned a lot as a coach. I think as a player, you think you know so much. When you get on the other side of the ball, it's a little different being a coach. So I learned a lot coaching at Arlington Catholic, obviously with Coach Clivio, and as a mentor, as a father figure, as a just an all-around friend. Really learned a lot about the game as a coach, but also as a person and how you present yourself and carry yourself as a coach to young players. So
you can watch the full interview with Coach Petrillis here on ACMi or on our YouTube page. That's all we have for sports this week, but be sure to keep watching ACMi for more coverage of our Spy Ponders as we continue the spring season.
Elementary school students danced their way to a better understanding of appreciating differences. The hip-hop group Alphabet Rockers brought their message of love and openness towards all at Stratton Elementary School last week. The hip-hop group not only got the kids to groove to their Grammy-nominated songs, but also engaged them on ways of how to stand up for those who may be discriminated against because of the color of their skin.
We are creating new language to help the discriminators and to help the discriminated. I have a 10-year-old and he's needed this message since preschool because he's black and he's Mexican, and if we don't get him here, then they're going to become us, and we're jacked up.
The Alphabet Rockers duo Tommy Shepard and Caitlin McGraw toured nationally from California, but have ties to the Boston area. The educational concert was funded by Stratton's parent-teacher organization. And I have to say, full disclosure, my daughter does attend the Stratton School, but it was a great way for us to let people know how they're learning about diversity at such a young age.
It's great. Good to see it.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us. You can check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public.
And if you'd like to be part of Arlington Public News and ACMi, email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by the studio here at 85 Park Avenue. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Brenda Mahoney. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm going to need to hear you say, I shine. Yes, you do. Rock with us, roll with us. Put your hands up like this. Let the sun shine in, say shine. In my beautiful skin, I shine. 'Cause it's from within, and you can see me glow every time I shine.
When they catch a good glimpse of what I'm really on, I'ma get some followers, probably like a million. Smile so big that it's looking like the ceiling's gone. You be like,
is that the sun?
Nope, it's just a bright one. Shades on, take a look at this complexity. Not just a star, I'm a galaxy. I'm the Big Bang.
That's right.
Written in the black stars every day.